An entitled Karen tries to get me in trouble after I park my RV in my driveway. And even though I'm obeying all the rules of the Homeowners Association, this entitled Karen goes into a rage, even going as far as trying to turn my neighbors against me, all so that she can get me in trouble for having an RV in the first place. Here's what happened. So I live in a pretty standard suburban neighborhood, and like a lot of places, it's run by an HOA. A few months ago, I decided to buy an RV, and it wasn't anything fancy as it was a used one, but I was really looking forward to taking weekend road trips and having the freedom to get away whenever I felt like it. So I parked in my driveway thinking nothing of it, but within a week, I received a letter from the HOA. Apparently, RVs aren't allowed to be parked in the driveway or on the street for more than 72 hours at a time. The letter warned that if I didn't move it, I'd start getting fined $50 a day. I wasn't thrilled, but I wasn't just gonna give up my RV either. So I read through the rules carefully. The HOA guidelines said that RVs must be not visible from the street or common areas. And that was it. No specifics on where or how the RV had to be parked, just that it couldn't be seen. Well, if that's what they wanted, that's exactly what I'm going to give them. I called up a contractor and had a solid 8-foot privacy fence installed around my front yard. It was a simple wooden fence, tall enough to completely block the view of my driveway from the street, and I made sure that it was solid, with no gaps or any chance of anyone being able to see through it. I parked the RV right up against the fence, hidden from view, meaning that technically I was following the rules perfectly and I knew it. But of course, things didn't stay quiet for very long. One of my neighbors, who we will call Karen, had already been vocal about not liking the RV in my driveway. She was the first one to send me a complaint about it, calling it an eyesore and saying it was ruining the neighborhood's charm. She even knocked on my door demanding that I move it. When I told her I was following the rules and had made sure the RV wasn't visible, she left in a huff, muttering something about how the HOA would take care of it. Well, the HOA did respond, but not in the way that Karen expected. A few days later, I get a letter from the HOA saying that they had reviewed the situation and found no violations. They acknowledged that I was in compliance, but trust me, this entitled Karen was not having it for a single second. Over the next few weeks, she went around the neighborhood complaining to the other neighbors about how the RV was still ruining the community's aesthetic. She was convinced the HOA just hadn't caught on yet, and she started rallying people to get the rules changed. She even went as far as knocking on doors and asking neighbors to send complaints to the HOA about my RV. I then started getting passive-aggressive comments when I ran into neighbors. One said to me, "Oh, I'm sure the HOA is going to change the rules soon enough." And another just sighed and said, "This isn't what this neighborhood is supposed to be about." But every time they complained, I just smiled and said, "I'm in compliance with the HOA's rules. I'm not doing anything wrong." But this entitled Karen wasn't done. A month later, she went straight to the HOA board, trying to rally a group of neighbors to push for a rule change to make sure no RV can be parked anywhere in the neighborhood. She got a couple of others on board, and they started sending in complaints about how my RV was ruining the neighborhood's curb appeal. So the HOA called me in for a meeting. I was a little nervous, but I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong. When the HOA arrived, they started walking around my yard looking for the RV. After a few minutes of confusion, one of them finally said, "So you're still parking the RV here?" I then nodded and pointed towards my driveway, where the RV was hidden behind the fence. I told them, well, yes, it's still here, but as you can see, it's not visible from the street. I'm following the rules exactly. The HOA rep stood there for a moment, looking frustrated, because there was no way they could argue with that. After a long silence, one of them sighed and said, "Well, I guess we can't really do anything about it if it's not visible." And surprisingly enough, that was the end of it. The HOA couldn't do anything more, and the Karen and the other neighbors had no legal ground to stand on. But this entitled Karen wasn't ready to give up just yet. A few days later, this Karen sent me a message. "I guess you win this round, but I'm watching you. I'll be keeping an eye out for any mistake or violation, and when I find one, I'll be right on it." But all I did was smile to myself. She could be watching all she wanted, but the fact of the matter is that my RV was hidden, and I was in full compliance. After that, things quieted down. No more complaints, no more passive-aggressive comments, and while this Karen may be eyeing me up, there was nothing left that she could do because I had completely won. As someone who deals with an HOA on a daily basis, this is honestly so satisfying. Do you know that some of these rules are so stupid? Most of the time, HOAs are run by a bunch of old people who have stupid rules in place that literally ruins everything in the neighborhood. Some things can be reasonable, but for the most part, it's all just really annoying and tedious stuff. So the fact that the original poster worked around it and used their system against them, in my opinion, is so satisfying. So good for the original poster for getting back at these people and for getting back at this annoying entitled Karen for literally trying to ruin your life, because your solution to this problem was absolutely brilliant. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not reacting properly after half of my friend group lied to me and the rest of us that they had booked a surprise Airbnb so that we could have our Secret Santa event? But in reality, this was a house that they bought secretly behind our backs that they lied to us about, expecting us to all pay $60 going towards this Airbnb. And now, as a result, me and the rest of my friends are questioning the intentions of the other half of our friend group, because right now we really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so every year our friend group hosts a Secret Santa event. A major part of this tradition involves booking an Airbnb where most of us plan to stay, though not everyone who shows up ends up sleeping there. Typically, we spend a few hours on Discord searching for Airbnbs that meet our criteria. We consider the location, capacity, our budget, and then we start bookmarking options for further review. This year, our entire friend group followed the usual process, spending hours searching through listings and bookmarking potential choices to revisit later. Then, about 2 weeks ago, half the group, we'll call this Group B, suddenly stopped communicating with us, we'll call us Group A, and went completely silent on Discord for an entire week. This abrupt change left Group A confused, prompting us to ask questions about what was going on and why Group B had suddenly stopped communicating with us. Suddenly, a few days later, Group B's main planner, the person who typically leads our event coordination, announced that he had booked a surprise Airbnb that was within budget and it was located in a great area. While Group A appreciated the effort, we requested more details, wanting at least some basic information about the place. However, the planner refused to provide any specifics, repeatedly responding with, "Oh, just trust me," and informing us that each participant would need to contribute $60, and this will be important later on. As days passed, Group A grew increasingly confused and uneasy about this Airbnb, which we were expected to help pay for, without any assurance or photos of what we were actually funding. Then a friend close to some members of Group B, we'll call him Jay for the sake of the story, let us know that the planner had recently purchased a house where everyone in Group B would be moving into. While we recognized this as an impressive feat for Group B, we were still confused by their continued insistence on presenting it as an Airbnb that we needed to contribute $60 a person towards. So with this information, Group A tried to get confirmation from Group B, but they wouldn't even budge, even as the Secret Santa event came closer. Jay also told us that part of the so-called surprise was that we wouldn't actually need to pay for anything, since the planner owned the house. Finally, last night, Group B revealed the truth. They had moved into a newly acquired house, and it would be the location of our Secret Santa event. But Group A wasn't thrilled about the week of lies and secrecy over something we had initially believed was an Airbnb that we were expected to fund. Well, after that, Group B was not happy with us, claiming that we acted essentially like babies for not being more supportive of their actions in getting this house for our event. So truly, am I the jerk for making them feel disappointed in us by reacting in a disgruntled manner? What should I do? Okay, this is absolutely insane. This is incredibly weird for starters, but also it comes off as super sketchy. For starters, they lied to the group. They literally said, "Oh, it's an Airbnb and we got it as a surprise." And part of that lie was that you had to pay $60 towards this stupid Airbnb, which by the way, it's not an Airbnb, and the $60 would have gone to God knows what. Like that for me is 2 strikes already, and the fact that they couldn't be upfront with you and they were lying and basically like hiding around the corner their actual intentions, for me is the 3rd strike in this situation. The person coordinating Group B is an absolute moron. If they had just been honest about what was actually going on, this could have been a great thing for the entire group. Like, why not just be open and honest upfront about what's going on instead of running around and being like, "Oh yeah, this is gonna be a secret. I can't tell you what's going on, sorry." The fact that they had to find out from somebody inside the group the actual intentions of Group B, in my opinion, is so toxic it's not even funny. But worse yet, it's the fact that they try to be like, "Wow, you're acting like a bunch of babies." It's like, no dude, I'm not being a baby. You're asking me to just trust you on traveling to some place I've never gone to before, buying a plane ticket and going to a house I've never seen in my life. That's not me acting like a baby. That's me actually having, I don't know, some common sense about myself. For this person to expect you to just trust them no matter what and be like, "Oh, don't worry, there's a surprise coming." Like, that's insane. That's not okay. Like, that really is super sketchy. There's no other way to look at this. Like, this would make me question if I even knew this person to begin with. Having friends on Discord can be nice, and it really is a good way to connect with people, but in situations like this, you need to know for a fact if you can trust this person or not. Because if I had a friend who was like, "Oh yeah, we've got a house set up, don't worry about it," and they then refused to give me any more information, then I would back out immediately and probably never trust them ever again. Because this behavior is completely uncalled for, and they have no right to treat you in this manner. Am I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from because right now my boyfriend's friends are saying that I overreacted by not showing up. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend's childhood friend got married this weekend. My boyfriend and I have been newly dating maybe about 6 months, and I have always gotten the cold shoulder from his friends. For context, my boyfriend and his friends have been close since grade school. So basically, there's some really small town vibes going on. Since beginning our relationship, I have seen his friends a total of 3 to 4 times, while we hang out with my friend group fairly regularly. I've known about this wedding since the beginning of our relationship, and in the few times I've seen his friends, their wedding always came up, and the bride and I had briefly spoken about timeline, the excitement, and all this other stuff. Well, this week, my boyfriend told me that I had been uninvited from their ceremony because they were over capacity, but also stated that I was more than welcome to attend the reception. I asked the normal questions. Was I the only one uninvited? Isn't it more expensive to have more people at the reception than the ceremony? And all this other stuff. He mentioned that there was an exception for married couples, which happens to be everyone else in the party. So clearly some more small town vibes. He is a groomsman in the wedding, and throughout the day, we have been talking about what I can and should wear, when to get there, and what to expect. He then texted me later into the evening and said dinner was about to be served. I asked if that was part of the reception or if I was missing something else, but apparently I was only allowed to come to drink and party, but not to any of the other wedding festivities. I then put my phone on Do Not Disturb for the evening and I just stayed home. Now, my boyfriend supports my decision, but his friends said that I was overreacting. So was I the jerk for not attending a reception to a wedding I was uninvited from? What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk because how are you overreacting here? You didn't do anything. You literally stayed home and didn't go to a wedding that they clearly didn't want you at in the first place. And why show up at all? It's pretty obvious they don't like you. They've given you the cold shoulder pretty much from day one, and it doesn't seem like they've made any attempt to get to know you or have any kind of friendship with you in the first place. And there's not really a good enough excuse to be like, oh, that's understandable, because they know your boyfriend really well. In fact, they've known each other since grade school. So for them to not make any attempt at you being involved in the group in some kind of way is just so weird and uncalled for. So personally, I don't blame you for not showing up because their reaction alone, in my opinion, pretty much confirms that they wanted you to be offended about not being invited. They wanted you at the reception to show up and feel left out just so they could be like, oh yeah, look at her, she wasn't at the wedding. But instead, they were met with you taking a stand and standing up for yourself. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and I think you made the better choice by staying home because these people clearly do not care about you. Am I the jerk for yelling at my boyfriend after he invited a homeless man that I've never met before into my house to spend the night? Because right now he is not talking to me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. He lives about 2 hours away, so we often stay at each other's houses for long stretches of time as we both work from home. My boyfriend is genuinely the most generous and caring person I've ever met. He regularly befriends homeless people on the street, volunteers at food banks in his free time, and always carries cash to help out people who may be down on their luck. He had a rough patch before I met him, so he likes to give back when he can. Now, he's been staying at my place for about a week, and this all happened yesterday. I was out running errands while my boyfriend was working, and when I got back home at around 5 o'clock, I walked into my apartment and was greeted by a total stranger in my kitchen. Now, I screamed initially from the surprise, but my boyfriend was there and explained the situation immediately. The man's name for the sake of the story will be Roger, and he was homeless. My boyfriend had apparently met him on a walk today, and they had started chatting. Roger mentioned that he had been sleeping in a tent for the last month, and my boyfriend had offered my couch up to him for a few nights, along with a few meals and hot showers. And when I heard this, I didn't know what to say, so I excused myself to the bathroom for just a little bit. I heard my boyfriend and Roger chatting in the other room, and honestly, he seemed nice enough, but I felt so uncomfortable by the whole situation. I ended up making some excuse about meeting a friend for dinner just so I could leave the apartment. But while I was out, I texted him saying that while I respect his generosity, I really wish he hadn't offered my apartment without consulting me first. I told him that it made me very uncomfortable to share my space with a complete stranger that I don't know at all. I said that if he wanted to let him take a shower and have a meal, that was fine, but I did not want him staying the night. Well, when I got back home at around 10 o'clock, Roger was gone, since my boyfriend had gotten him a hotel for the night. He and I got into an argument about how he felt I was classist and that I was unwelcoming for not letting Roger stay. He said when he was in Roger's position, he would have been so grateful for a couch and a hot meal like this one. He also claimed that if he had brought home a friend that I didn't know who wasn't homeless, then I wouldn't have kicked him out. I don't think he was right by inviting anyone, homeless or or not into my house without asking me first. Also, the couch he offered is brand new. I'm trying to be very careful with it, and to be completely honest, all of Roger's clothing and belongings smelled heavily of cigarettes as he was sitting on it. I have a very sensitive nose, and I know even in just the time that he was here, it will take me days to stop smelling it. My boyfriend hasn't spoken to me all day, and he went out at around noon, probably to check on Roger in the hotel room. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your boyfriend is out of his mind if he thinks this is okay. If he wants to volunteer his house for homeless people or work at the food bank or the soup kitchen, then fine, go for that. That's absolutely fantastic, and that's a great thing for him to do. But for him to volunteer your home to this guy that you've never met with the expectation he's going to be sleeping in the same house as you, like that, in my opinion, is crazy. That is not only super unsafe, but also incredibly stupid of your boyfriend. Because let's get down to the facts real quick. How well does he know Roger? Does he know if Roger has a weapon on him? Or maybe like illegal substances of some kind? Like he doesn't know any of that information. This guy could be lying about his story and waiting to get in people's houses to like exploit their generosity and then rob the place blind or even injure you and your boyfriend. Because let's be honest, your boyfriend is being super naive. I understand he was homeless at some point, but to open up someone else's house for him to bring homeless people in, that is crazy, and there is no good excuse for that. Because he literally forced this upon you when you did not agree to this at all. And that, in my opinion, is absolutely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for telling my mom to stop playing the victim after she tries to pretend that nobody appreciates her at Thanksgiving dinner? Because after I called her out in front of the entire family, she stormed off, repeating to me the things I've heard since my childhood about me being selfish and incredibly cruel. And now my family is split down the middle, with some of them saying I was in the right to call her out, but the others saying that I was heartless in that moment. And so because of that, I feel incredibly confused and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my mom and I have always had a strained relationship. Growing up, I learned early that everything had to be about her needs, her feelings, etc. I was expected to manage my emotions around her, tiptoeing through every interaction to try and keep the peace. If something didn't go her way, she'd somehow twist the situation until she was the one hurt, the one who'd done everything right and was never appreciated. I hated the way it made me feel, but I told myself that one day I'd have a chance to set boundaries and live my life without walking on eggshells. But as an adult, nothing's really changed. I still find myself anxiously checking my tone, weighing every word before I speak, just to keep her from making herself the victim. This year, I decided to host Thanksgiving for the family, and I promised myself that it would be a peaceful day. My mom would come, but I'd just focus on keeping things calm. No drama was gonna happen. Well, things were fine at first. My dad was cracking jokes, everyone was catching up, and I started to think that maybe this time would be different. Then, as we sat down to eat, my mom started in. First, it was the small jabs and comments about how I never call and how I'm always too busy for her. I tried to brush them off, but then she moved on to bigger things, saying how family means so much to her, but she feels like she's the only one who cares. That's when she launched into her usual spiel about how much she's sacrificed, how no one appreciates her, and how she's such a good mother who's never shown gratitude. At this point, I could feel my blood start to boil. I tried to hold my tongue, but I couldn't do it, so I snapped at her. I said to her, "Mom, you really need to stop playing the victim. It is exhausting, and it's why we don't get along." After I said that, the room went dead silent. She sat there absolutely shocked before her face crumbled and she started crying. She called me cruel, heartless, and that I had ruined Thanksgiving. She said she only ever tried to love me, but I was too selfish to see it. Then she stormed out, and my dad followed her, giving me a sad look like he knew this was coming but couldn't do anything about it. And now my family is completely divided. Some of my relatives have called me to say they understand, that she needed to hear it, but others think that I was heartless, that I could have been kinder or more tactful. They keep saying she's my mother, and that one day I'll regret speaking to her in this way. But a part of me feels like I had to say it. If I didn't draw a line now, I'd be stuck in this cycle forever. So now I'm conflicted, because I never wanted to hurt her, especially not on Thanksgiving Day. I just couldn't keep pretending her behavior was okay. She refuses to see her role in our issues, and I'm tired of always being the one who has to accommodate her feelings. So am I the jerk for finally telling her the truth, even if it hurt her feelings at Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I can't stand people who act like this, who literally try to make it seem like they're the victim of any situation that's in front of them, while also being the person who's like instigating some kind of argument. Like, that is super annoying, and it's something I seriously cannot stand. But you know what? In my opinion, if your mom really wanted to be some kind of victim, then congratulations, you get to be the victim. But in this case, it's not over nothing. And sure, the rest of your family doesn't understand the nuance of your relationship with your mom, but that doesn't matter. She clearly has acted like this your entire childhood, and now, even as an adult, she's still doing it. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be so frustrated putting up with that all the time. Like seriously, when does it end? When is she gonna grow up and stop trying to start drama and take these jabs at you and try to pretend like, oh yeah, nobody appreciates me? Because in reality, she is the one causing the problems. And sure, this did happen in front of the entire family, but your mom is the one who started this in the middle of Thanksgiving. And if she can't take your honest words about the situation, then maybe she's the one who shouldn't have started it in the first place. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out EasyMode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.